WOCA.
Ocala.
It's just about 5 minutes after 9 o'clock. Well, we're getting a tiny bit early start. Brad Boersma and Josh Burdock are in the studio from Ocala Aviation Flight School. They come in every Friday to answer your questions about what you might need to do if you want to become a pilot. That's what they do. They train people to become pilots, and they do it all the time. So go out and make one of those goals yours, I guess, is what I want to say. The phone number, if you want to talk to Brad and Josh during the course of this half hour, is the WOCA Climate Control Source Hotline, 622-9622. Good morning, Josh. Good morning, Brad. How you guys doing?
Good morning, sir. Doing well. How about you?
Happy birthday, Larry.
Thank you, sir.
Happy birthday, Larry.
Happy birthday. You're old enough to die, and if you keep on living, you'll get a piece of pie. Hey.
That must be a missionary thing.
A missionary thing.
I don't think it's a missionary thing, but
I've never heard it.
would you like me to sing it again?
No, please don't.
I'll sing it again.
So you grew up on the missionary field, so if you learned it there, then it's the missionary thing. Just like with I Sing
I didn't,
songs.
actually. I made that up myself.
Well, that would explain it.
You want me to sing it again?
No, please don't.
So you haven't been together when you had a birthday, Brad? I mean, Josh never sang it to you?
No, he never sang it to me. No.
It's because I'd
So
probably
have you had a birthday since you've known each other?
Yes.
I think I've had two.
But if I was to sing that, he'd probably fire me, so.
Oh, okay.
You can't fire me. Neener,
That's
neener.
true, I can't. I can turn your mic off, but I can't fire you.
That's all right.
You should have.
I'll just sit over here and take a nap then.
Yes. So how are you, Josh? He did ask you.
I'm good.
That's good. There you go.
I'm
I got
tired.
him.
It's Friday.
Yes. And we've got some very good announcements for being a Friday.
Yes. It's Larry's birthday.
Yes.
Happy birthday.
No, no,
die,
no,
and
no,
if you
no.
keep on living, you get a piece of pie. Hey.
All the flights that are being canceled because of the snow. Do you ever have people say, "Oh my gosh, I got to get there. Can you guys take me?" Do you ever get one of them?
No.
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 People don't want those small planes, do they? For the
Well, I mean, no, but I've never had somebody call me say my flight is stuck. I've had people say I'm stuck, or I've got an emergency I've got to get to, and we have to tell them no because that's a charter flight. We can't do it. But not because of the snow. Generally, they're already stuck at an airport, and they're not going to come all the way to us.
okay.
Yeah.
But we have had people that want to get somewhere quick, and we've been trying to explain to them, even if we could do it, it'd be more expensive than you really realize it is.
Are the runways up there, like, do they put salt down like they do in the streets? Well, how do they...
They don't usually use salt because it's corrosive to airplanes.
Oh,
They'll actually
okay.
go out there and just plow them.
Oh, so the ice is still there.
Yeah, sometimes, yep. And different runways have different ways that they use. Sometimes they put fluid on them. Sometimes some of the runways are actually heated.
Oh, really?
Some of the really expensive runways.
Oh, wow.
Very expensive runways.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And any examples? Is Kennedy...
I'm not sure which
no?
ones
Okay.
are.
I don't know.
Which ones not.
I'm here. I don't know about up there.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
But it is interesting to know.
Our runway here at Ocala is not.
It's not heated. Okay.
No, so you don't need to worry about ice on our runway.
But in the summer, you remember, you were telling us about some runways that were so hot that it was melting the tires, right?
A lot of runways get that way.
Or melting the asphalt.
The
I'm sorry.
asphalt, yeah, the heavy
They were
planes will actually
sinking
sink down in.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they don't put air conditioners on runways though either. Wouldn't do much good. Yeah, the asphalt gets very, very hot in the summer.
Like you can sometimes feel it through your shoes.
When we joke about people with degrees who become doctors, we say, did he get an A or did he get a D? I mean, did he just pass or did he pass with flying colors? Is the same thing true for pilots? I mean, are there some pilots who you pass, but holy mackerel, I'm never flying with you. Do you ever get that?
No. Never. All of our students, well, you know, some students have a hard time with the written test, but that doesn't necessarily talk about how they fly.
Oh, okay.
You know, they do make the joke, well, you know, what is the doctor, you know, gets worse in the class, what do you still call him? You still call him a doctor?
Right.
But a lot of times they just have a problem with the written. You know, and some of them it's, okay, you need to learn more information because there's a reason, but some people just don't test well. Well, if they get through the check ride, then they should be flying. Because it's a whole lot different than just taking written tests.
So is that the nerve-wracking factor for your students? I mean, they
Yes.
say, oh, it's the written part. I'm not good at this.
Everybody's different. Some
Yeah.
people love the written and hate the flying. Other people are opposite. It just
I'd rather
depends.
be with a pilot who knew how to fly.
Well, no. They get nervous like for their check ride. Not they don't know how to fly, but some people don't get nervous for the check ride at all. They just don't like doing the written tests. Or you have people that get nervous on both, but they're great pilots, but they just don't test well. And you just have to get them through it.
You've been doing it a long time. I mean, have you ever had a pilot that was so-so, came back a few years later and was really good at it? I mean, and is there, if you
Well,
don't
every
know?
pilot should improve as they get more experience.
Yeah.
Should is the key word, because if you get your license and then 2 years later you come back and you've only flown twice, you're not going to get any better.
Do you ever
Yeah,
purposely put an obstacle in the way? Like, for example, when Dan, I know you didn't do it on purpose, but Dan took off one time and a spark plug blew out or something, right? So he now has that experience under his belt where he had to make a decision to get back down.
Yeah, you don't purposely make emergencies on people.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we do simulate emergencies on
Yeah,
them.
simulate, not
Yeah.
actual.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do they know? Does the student know that you're going to do that?
When you first start, you let them know, hey, this is what we're going to be doing today. But
Uh-huh.
after that point, I usually tell my students, from now on, an engine failure, a simulated engine failure might occur, on any given flight at any given time.
Okay.
And that usually catches them off guard.
Oh, wow. So what do you do? Just say, okay, we're simulating. At that moment, you say, okay, what, turn the key?
Yeah,
How do
well,
you-
no, I
No.
what I do is I say to them, all right, simulated engine failure, and I'll actually pull the throttle of the airplane all the way back to idle. So the engine's still running, but you're just not applying any power.
Okay.
And the airplane doesn't follow the sky; it just becomes a big glider, and then they have to deal with, all right, where am I? What field am I going to land in? What preparations do I need to make, and everything like that. And I evaluate that, and then at a point, probably about 1,000 feet, I say, all right, I'm convinced that either you made the field or we're going to die, and I'll have them add power again. We'll go around, then we'll talk about it after that.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So
Is that scary for you as a teacher?
not really.
No.
Because he knows he can add the power back
Yeah,
in.
because I know I can
Right,
add the
right,
engine, the power back in whenever I need to. So
Yeah. The funny one is we used to do this over fields in different areas to get students used to it. Well, one of our examiners started testing people very high over the airport.
Mm-hmm.
I think the first time he tried it was like 4,000 feet over the airport. Well, you'd think if you're directly over the airport, you wouldn't have a problem making the landing. A lot of people would miss because they weren't used to. They were practicing over a field at 1,500 feet, not over a runway at 4,000 feet. So they would circle, and then miss the runway. So
Or-
that's one thing of you actually get used to is trying different emergencies in
Yeah.
different situations.
the big thing I actually noticed with the scenario that Brad just said is people actually are too high. They line up with the runway in the end, and they're still much too high to make it down to the runway. But not high enough to actually do another 360-degree turn or something to
Wow.
get lower. So that's the biggest mistake I see with doing simulated engine outs over an airport is that they get too hasty to turn final
Uh-huh.
on to land, and they're still too high to do it.
Does experience play a bigger role in that than the equipment?
It does. When you start to be able to, kind of see what the winds are doing and know ahead of time how that's going to affect your airplane and what you should do to get your airplane to the point you want it at a certain given amount of time, that comes with more practice and experience than anything else. Because the first time you do it, they have no idea what, the wind is, they might know what the wind is doing, but they don't know how that is going to affect the airplane exactly.
Do the airplanes always take off in the same direction?
No.
And that's determined by the wind?
Yes.
Yes, largely by the wind.
You want to take off into a headwind.
And who makes that decision? The guys in the tower?
The wind.
I mean, do you look at the windsock and go, oh, I got to get to the other end? Or,
Well, no, the guys in the tower
Okay.
let us know. Yes.
If you're at an an airport without a control tower like Denellen, then you would look at the windsock and say, yeah, I need to be at this side or that side of the runway.
oh, okay.
Yeah, and generally what happens is a non-tower, like before Ocala was, you'd have, generally you use runway 36, okay? Everybody uses 36. But if the wind changes, then you go to 1.8. But sometimes you'll have everybody's using 3.6 and somebody wants to use 1.8. Well, you kind of have to go with the crowd to not make things dangerous.
Yeah, I would say. Yeah.
Because some people, I'm going south, so I want to use 1.8. Well, that doesn't help if everybody else is using 3.6. So sometimes you have to do what everybody else is doing anyway.
But the runway in Ocala only has two directions. There's not a, or is there a cross?
There's a smaller runway also.
Oh, there is.
Yeah. It doesn't cross it,
It doesn't
though.
actually cross the main runway, but it's on the north end of the field. It's a
So you would never take off on
2,400 feet, lot narrower strip that they use.
you never
Yeah.
take off in a crosswind?
You can.
You can?
It depends
More
on what the
often
crosswind
than
is.
not, you actually do, because
Oh,
how
really?
often does the wind actually come from
Exactly,
Directly
yeah.
from the
directly
Yeah.
from the north or the south? So
What is the thing? It's been years since I've been there. I don't even know if it's still there. But it almost looks like a bowling pin way off in the distance when you're at the Ocala airport. What is that thing?
A bowling pin?
It looks like a big bowling pin. I mean, is it maybe not there anymore? It's been. I haven't been there in a long time.
It could be the VOR you're talking about.
And what is that?
I don't know if that looks like a bowl. I guess it could look like a bowling pin.
Does it kind of look like a white sombrero?
No, he said a bowling pin.
I don't know.
A bowling pin and sombrero are not the
Well,
same
I'm
thing.
just, I look at it and it looks like a sombrero to me.
Oh, okay. I don't know, but it could. You mean?
You know what? Come out to the airport, point it out to us.
Yeah.
All right. We do have a phone call. Good morning. You're on there with Josh and Brad.
Yeah, good morning, guys.
Morning.
In your smaller aircraft, let's say you're by yourself, what speed do you need to attain to lift off if you're just by yourself?
Well, the airplane will actually lift off at a much slower airspeed than it actually needs to climb out at.
Okay.
An airplane, if under the right conditions, you can have it airborne, at about 50 to 55 knots.
Okay.
With full fuel and one person on board with the airplanes that we fly.
Yeah.
Now there is an area right above the ground that we call ground effect, and this
Okay.
is an area where the wings, in essence, are creating more lift than they do when they're not in ground effect. And this is a very scientific, complicated reason why. But basically, when you're within half a wingspan above the ground, your wings, in essence, are creating more lift than when you're higher than that. So even though it's possible to get airborne at 55 knots, you might not be able to climb out until you hit 60 or 65.
So what is
Yeah.
actual rotation speed, Josh?
Rotation speed is 55 usually.
55. Now, if you had, let's say, one passenger weighs, let's say, 175, how do you calculate that? You figure you're still going for 55 miles an hour, but how many more feet would you need?
It'll be about the same actually.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Yeah, but there are ways that you can do it. There's calculations that use. There's charts that say if you're doing, what this temperature is, what your weight is. You can work all kinds of charts, but generally for one person, it's not going to change too much.
Okay, how about like two people besides yourself?
Well, as you add two people, then you're talking about your CG could possibly different.
Okay.
And, so yeah, then you start working out the differences.
Okay, yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. Okay, well, thank you.
Okay.
Interesting answer. Yeah, thanks a lot.
All right. There, you take care
Yes,
of that.
we're going to talk about two people. We're talking about Dennis Stiles. He is a student from from up in Virginia, Washington D.C. Yeah, Washington D.C. That's where he's
Maryland?
from. Maryland. I don't know why I
Somewhere
thought
up
Virginia.
there. I don't know why
I don't
Virginia.
know. He's from Washington D.C. And he just on Friday got his private pilot's license. He's down here for a few months. He's now working on his instrument. So good job to him. And then Kevin, who we talked about last week, that had done the ground portion for his check ride, went up on Tuesday and finished, and is now our newest certified flight instructor. So that is a great job to him. He did very good, and he passed. So come out and see him and fly with him. Yay! Okay.
Yay for Kevin.
Yay for Kevin. Yay for Dennis. So see, if you come out and start flying with us, you will be famous also and be on the radio. And how do you start to fly, Josh? How do you learn it if you really want to learn to fly?
Come to the airport.
And do what?
Fly.
And take a
Discovery flight.
There you go.
Yeah.
That
Fill in
took
the
a
blank.
minute, didn't
That's
it?
easy.
Yes, it took a while though. Yes, Discovery flights. We are still doing those. We do them all the time. You don't have to necessarily
Slow
want to
down,
learn to
Brad.
fly. Why?
People can't listen that fast on the radio. You need to take a breath once in a while.
You describe the Discovery flight.
No,
for
I'm
me.
not going to do it. I'm making a
Exactly.
paper airplane right now.
Yeah, so you should come out, do the Discovery flight. You can do it for fun, or if you think you might want to learn to fly.
I think you have a phone call. Good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning.
Good morning.
What does it cost?
The Discovery flight?
No, to become a pilot.
To become a pilot, well, that's kind of a loaded question. And the reason why is it really depends on you, how well you learn, the type of airplane you're going to use. Generally, you're looking between about $7,500 to $8,500 to get your license.
75 to 85. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. There's, like I said, that's a very loaded question because when we talk about the pricing, we talk about everything. Like you can see people that advertise, $5,500 to get your or for flight training. That's true, but it's not just flight training that it takes to get your license. You have to have a medical. You have to go through an FAA written. You have to go do an FAA check ride.
Medical is a medical exam, by the way, that costs money to get.
Yes. All these things cost extra money that a lot of people don't tell you about. You have training materials, you have ground, so once you think about adding, excuse me, once you think about adding everything in, and a lot of money that doesn't even come to us,
Nice.
we try and ensure that you know all the possible costs that are coming. So in reality, it's not too bad. Okay.
You do have another phone call. Go on, you're on the air.
Hey, this is Bruce. What I wanted to talk to you about, I turned my radio down. It was about landing in crosswinds. Now, Cedar Key is notorious for that.
Oh, yeah.
And I had a place over there, and I had to land quite often. And it was crosswinds always because the runway runs from east to west, see, so consequently it's a lot north or south. So consequently, if you don't watch out over there, now when you get ready, you line up the runway, you don't try to land in the middle of the runway. What you do is whether it's east or west, you have to head slightly to the side, and you aim for the side, and then when you aim for the side of it, you wind up in the right of the runway, and then you wind and you find your tires are sliding sideways on. But you do land, because I'll give you an example. There was a man over there, and he tried to land one day, and I was behind him, and he never did get that plane on the ground. Every time he'd try to land, he'd wind up over on the side of it. Then he'd take off again, and he tried it again, and then he tried it 3 times. Finally, he took off. So just remember, you don't land right in the middle, head for the middle of the runway. After you start getting down to a certain low altitude, you've got to take and allow for wind drift. Now, the same thing, I've taken off from your airport, and I find as soon as the plane started to lift, I would drift to the left. So you have to correct it quick right on the runway sometimes. So it's very important to let people know that crosswinds, and they can change, they have changed, and when they change on you, you're going to have full control of the plane and not busy talking to your neighbor.
Absolutely.
Okay? I'm going to hang up.
Yeah, one thing about Cedar Key, that's actually one thing, is we do not allow our students to fly over to Cedar Key, at least not in our planes, and we don't want them flying over. No, Cedar Key it's a very short, very small runway. It's surrounded by water, and it's got the people tend to have horizon issues taking off with water, and so it's one of those that it's not just the shortness, it's the way that it's made, and with the trees, we don't actually have students go over there, and like he said, because of issues. As far as the crosswind landings, there's different ways to teach it. Like obviously Bruce likes going towards the side, and I know that Josh teaches it a bit different.
Yeah.
And so why don't you tell how you teach it, Josh?
What the FAA really likes to see, for the check rides and everything, they're very, very big on actually landing in the center line.
Huge.
Yeah. Basically, if you don't land on the center line, they'll fail you on your exam these days. And there's a certain technique to landing on the center line, no matter what the winds are doing. For example, if we were coming in to land at a runway and we had a crosswind coming from the left, it would try to blow us to the right side of the runway. Now, in order to land in the middle of the runway, what we would do is we'd bank the wings slightly towards the wind. All right. Now, when you bank the wings slightly towards the wind, the airplane wants to start to turn into the wind, kind of weather vane. And in order to keep that from happening, we actually use a little bit of opposite rudder, which will point the nose down the runway. So, in essence, what we're doing is the airplane is tilted to one side, but still flying straight down the runway. And you do that just enough bank to keep the airplane from being pushed to the right side of the runway. And at that point, you bring the airplane down, and the idea is to have the upwind tire, the tire that's on the side that the wind is coming from, to touch down first, followed by the downwind tire, and then the nose wheel after that. And that'll keep you from being pushed across the runway. Now, depending on how strong the wind is how much you need to actually move those controls to get that to happen. It's something that takes a lot of practice that we go over with students, but it's definitely better for tires and safer for the airplane. One of the dangers of landing sideways, if with an airplane, you can actually be moving in a different direction than the nose is pointed. All right, kind of like, we can't do that with a car. The nose is of the car is usually, unless you're sliding, pointing the direction you're going. And if you land an airplane in a what we call a side load configuration, where it's not moving in the same direction of the nose, you can actually damage the gear, tear off tires if you do it hard enough. So it's very important that you get the direction of the airplane aligned with the nose of the airplane when you land. And this sometimes entails landing on one wheel first and then the other wheel.
Wow.
With
This is
one
why I
wing
don't think
low.
I'd be good at this.
Well, and this is also though why we do practice in crosswind. A lot of students, there's wind, I don't want to practice. Well, that's when we do practice, because if you try and simulate wind, you're not going to get the same
Yeah,
feeling. As like
yeah.
Josh said, that's why you have to practice it and practice it. Is that's what's going to get you to where you're ready to do it.
Yeah, so that's how we adjust for crosswinds on landing. Crosswinds on takeoff is very similar as well. We start our takeoff roll with the yoke or the wheel, often called of the airplane, banked into the wind just a little bit. Now that doesn't do anything on the ground because it only controls the control surfaces on the wings. All right. So as you start your takeoff roll, you kind of hold it there, and the idea is once again to lift the nose wheel, lift the tire that's on the downwind side of the airplane, so the side that the wind is not coming from, and then the last wheel that you lift off is the one on the side that the wind is coming from, which will keep you from being blown across the runway.
And if you do this, one piece of advice though is if you're a pilot and you've got passengers, let them know that you're doing it on purpose.
Yeah.
Because you can get your passengers scared thinking something's wrong when you lift up one wing or they don't know what's going on.
It's
always good to
it's almost
tell
like
them.
taking off in a little bit of a bank.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So you want to let your passengers know that you're doing it on purpose.
Yeah.
Before the fact.
Yes.
Before the fact.
Before the fact. Yes.
Yeah.
I meant to do that.
I meant to do that. Never really sounds
No.
good, after the fact.
Nobody believes you when you say that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow. Well, I think that's, that's why I wouldn't be good at this. That sounds like a lot of thinking.
Well,
It actually comes quite naturally
Yeah?
after there's a certain amount when you're really thinking about it, and then after a little bit it starts to come more naturally to where you're actually adjusting for the wind without really realizing that you're doing it. We almost call it becoming one with the airplane, where you know what you want the airplane to do, and your muscle memory knows how to make that do it. So you think basically this is what I want the airplane to do, and you automatically do it. And this comes after a certain amount of time. And that's why it's important to have the hours to become a private pilot or for these different licenses, so that you have this muscle memory built in, and you don't have to stop and think, oh, okay, now I've got a wind from the right, which means I'm going to be being pushed to the left.
Yeah.
By this time, you're
Yeah.
2 miles further on.
yeah, exactly. And that's
Yeah,
when some people,
yeah.
they say it's expensive, but it's not when in reality what you're thinking about what you get and how much training you have and what's involved in it.
Yeah,
There's a whole lot that's involved in it, and you learn a lot and you become a much better, not just a pilot, but you really do, and this is going to sound cliche, but a better person when it comes to the way you handle
That
things.
did sound cliche.
I know, but it's true. When you go and you jump in your car, you don't think twice about getting in your car and going. When you do that in a plane, you can't do that. You have to stop. You have to think. You
Sounds
have to
like it,
prepare.
yeah.
And plus, once you fly, not another cliche, you seriously stare all the time every time you hear a plane.
Up to a certain point, and then you stop.
Oh, are you kidding? I'm out at the airport. These guys will be naming planes like they hear them and, oh, that's a this plane, that's a this plane. They're ridiculous.
Yeah.
He may not look, but he still listens constantly. But it is. Once you start to fly, you notice. You notice things that you never noticed before. You notice the weather.
Yep.
I never,
Sure,
before
yeah.
I was in aviation, I never noticed. It didn't matter what the weather was doing. It didn't affect me.
Yeah, right.
Well, now it's like the weather, you notice it all the time.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean, is you start to just notice things more. As
Well,
funny as that
and
is.
I think you become. We use a term in aviation called situational awareness.
Yeah.
And basically, the definition of situational awareness is the pilot's understanding of the world around him, both inside the cockpit, outside the cockpit, and the weather and everything like that.
Right.
So basically, everything. All the information available to the pilot and how he perceives that is situational awareness. And I think as pilots, we tend to carry that through the rest of our your everyday life as well, with situational awareness, thinking about the different
Yeah.
things that could happen and everything like that.
Yeah, well, and another one is with pilots, it's they have to think about before they take off what kind of mood they're in. Are they angry? Are they pressured? Think about how many times have you gotten in your car where you're angry and you drive like a jerk because you're in a bad mood.
Yeah, right.
In a plane, you're supposed to assess yourself before you take off. Am I tired? Am I grumpy? Am I pressured to go?
Are you honest with yourself with that question?
Sometimes.
Sometimes some people say I'm not pressured, but they are. You know,
Yeah, right.
I've
but
had
generally,
people who said they're not grumpy and they are.
yeah. But it definitely makes you assess things and things that you don't normally.
Well, yeah, and how if you think about how hard is it to learn, to become a pilot if you're grumpy,
Right.
or whatever.
Yeah.
There's certain conditions that must be right for somebody to learn to the maximal potential.
We are right up against the clock, but somebody's trying to get through. Let's take one quick call. You got to be very quick today. Good morning. You're on the air with.
This is Dennis. I'd ask you a real quick question.
Hey, Dennis.
I know that when a pilot takes off from an airport, don't they always set their altimeter to find out what the exact elevation of that airport is?
Not necessarily the exact elevation of the airport. The altimeter works based on the pressure of the area. So you got low pressure systems and high pressure systems that move through the area, and the altimeter is set based on the current barometric pressure, which is usually fairly close to the actual elevation, but it's actually the distance above mean sea level. Is what
And you do that
set to.
before you take off.
Yep.
Would they do that just to make sure their altimeter is working correctly?
Yes.
Is that the reason for it?
Well, yes, and also because as pressure,
Because they're going to land at an airport that's got a different level.
well, yeah, that, and as the pressure changes come through, we might go out to the airplanes this morning and we have a higher pressure than we did yesterday. I'm not sure if we do or not, but let's just say our altimeters will show that we're 150 feet maybe, where the actual airport is at 90 feet.
What that elevation of that airport is what?
89.
89 feet. Okay. Thank you.
Wow,
Okay.
Wow, informative show and illustrating the reason why I don't think I'd be a good pilot. Well, thank you guys. You guys are awesome. Every week, hopefully, we retain some of that information that you give us.
Well, if not, just call and we'll answer anything we can.
And if we want to take lessons, where do we call?
352-861-7484.
All right. Good show, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
We'll take a little break and be right back.
Ocala's information station, 1370 WOCA.
Ocala.
ABC News Now. I'm Karen Chase. Millions in the path of a monster blizzard are either battening down, stocking up, or bugging out as the flakes begin to fly. Airlines, Amtrak, and schools are either canceling or limiting services as they hunker down for the big storm that could bring 3 feet of snow to parts of New England. A heavily armed